welcome back to Promises Kept, our Bible study, in which we're taking a look at 150 of God's promises over 5 months. And today we are on Promise Kept number 137, and we're back in a Proverbs for our promise verse. Now, we've seen in the Proverbs before that there's lots of wisdom and there's also lots of promises, and today is no different. Now, we are going to be in the very beginning of Proverbs, our verses in chapter 1, and it is verse number 23. But this is one of these situations where you really need to not just take a verse where it is, but to take it in its context. You can't pull this one out and try to understand it because it's confusing in a way. Now, we have talked before about the fact that by the end of the Proverbs, you're going to see different themes like wisdom and foolishness and marriage and the themes around marriage and sloth and working hard. Those are just some of the themes. But by the end of the Proverbs, it's pretty clear that when the Proverbs are talking about wisdom, it can be interchangeable really with God. And so this is one of those things you need to know when you're looking at our promise verse today, because you start to get language that can really be confusing if you're just thinking about it being wisdom itself. So anyway, let me read the verse and then we're going to talk about it, and then we'll talk it through in its context, and you'll get the gist of it. So our promise verse is Proverbs 1:23. If you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. Now, just saying that, you start to think to myself, oh, these are words I've heard. The Spirit is going to be poured out to me, and the words are going to be made known to me. This is a good thing. But it's not a good thing when you take it in its context. So first, I'll just start explaining this one, because at first it says, if you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. And first of all, reproof would be if you turn at now it's talking about wisdom, but again, God, if you turn at God's reproof, then it goes on. Now, reproof, what does that mean? It's something which is trying to get you to see the error of your ways and turn towards God. So it's convicting you. The reproof of wisdom of God in this situation is convicting you. And it's saying here, behold, if you turn at my reproof. Now, you have to know the language of turning. And in the Bible, you'll see many times it says, turn away or turn aside or turn. So it's in this instance, the turning at my reproof is turning away from it. So God has reproved, wisdom has reproved, and you've decided, no, I'm going to stay on my own path. I'm going to turn away from the reproof of God, which is a bad thing. And that's why you can know that the next verse, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you, and I will make my words known to you, is not a good thing. We're so used to hearing, I'll pour out my spirit on you, or my spirit is within you. Well, here we have different language, and it's a little s spirit, and it says, I'll pour out my spirit to you. I'll make my words known to you. So this is, it's coming at you, and not necessarily in a good way. And we're going to see that as we continue. So follow with me into verse 24. Because I have called and you refuse to listen. I have stretched out my hand and no one has heeded. So that fills in the gaps, right? It's saying wisdom, God has come and reproved you. You've turned away. And because because God called out, wisdom called out, you refuse to listen. I have stretched out my hand. I've come to you. I've said, follow me. Don't do it your way. Follow me. But nobody has heeded. That's why the Spirit is going to be poured out to them, and the words are going to be known to them. And it's God's ramping things up now. We tried the easy way, right? A little reproof, stretching out my hand. Follow me. Nobody listened, and now comes the Spirit coming at them. So continue on, verse 25. Because you have ignored all my counsel and would have none of my reproof. They're just rejecting wisdom / God, rejecting the wisdom of God. And here's where it gets bad. Here's what it looks like to have the Spirit poured out to you and the words known to you. Verse 26, I will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you. When terror strikes you like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you, then they, the people that didn't listen to God's reproof, will call upon me, wisdom, God, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me, because they have hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They rejected him, rejected his reproof. He stretched out his hand, follow me, and they said no. And because of that, when the calamity comes and they start seeking, oh God, I need you now, I need you now, he's going to laugh, and he's not going to be there because they hated the knowledge of him. And it's sad, to hear it in that language, but here it is. In the Proverbs. So we'll continue. 29, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, would have none of my counsel and despised all my reproof, therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way and have the fill of their own devices. So they wanted their way, they get their way. Any way that's against God turns into bad. It turns into calamity. It turns into harm. Turns into consequence. It's not God doing it. It's just when you don't follow God, then consequences flow. It's just the way it is. My pastor, when I was back in New York, I remember him saying, there's a design for everything. God's design is the best thing. If you use things in the way that God designed them, things go well for you. If you use it against God's design, it doesn't go well. He had the example, if you have a chainsaw, cuts down trees, no problem. It's absolutely wonderful. Cut through wood, beautiful. But if you were to take that chainsaw and decide to go over to a set of bleachers or a flagpole and cut it down, it's not going to go well for you. It's going to kick back. You might get hurt, fall back. Who knows? So God's way leads to good. Your way, hey, I'm going to use the chainsaw metal. It leads to calamity, consequence, whatever that might look like, but not good. Verse 32, for the simple are killed by their turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. So, yeah, it's sad. Killed, meaning, I'm following my way, I'm following the way of the world, I'm following the way of Satan, I'm not following you, God. Killed, separated eternally from God, that's the fate. It's going to be eternity in hell for those who have rejected the fear of the Lord and to follow his ways. It's just pretty simple. But I like this. Well, I don't like it, but I like how it's said. The complacency of fools destroys them. Complacency means it's just laziness, which, any Christ follower will tell you, it's not easy to follow God's way sometimes. It's not the easy path. You get mocked, you get scorned. The world is doing all these things, and it's hard to say no, I'm not going to do that. God says do it a different way. It's the harder way. The complacency of fools destroys them. It's laziness. There's some place in the New Testament where it says the path to God, the narrow path is difficult, narrow. The wide path, the path to hell, it's wide, it's easy. You can just follow the herd right on in. It's the easy way. It's harder to get into the narrow road. It's just harder to follow Jesus. And so complacency destroys people. They just say, I'm just going to continue to do it my way. I'm just going to be lazy about it. I don't want to even look into Jesus. I'm fine on my own. I'm doing great. Why would I need God in my life? I have everything I need, my house, my family, especially here in the United States. It's just laziness, complacency. If what the Bible says is true, that you need Jesus, he's the only way to heaven, that there is a heaven, and following him is the way to heaven, you know, that's out there for America, for the whole world to know, to see. You'd think it's out there. You'd just research it a little bit. Because if it's true, and there's billions and billions of Christ followers, much, much smarter than me, that believe it's true, Albert Einstein, Michelangelo, Galileo, I mean, it can go on and on. These people didn't just blindly follow. They, yeah, they might have been born Christ followers, but they, they're scientists. They researched it. It's laziness to not research it. Just to find out if it's true. Not to throw out things you've heard. Oh, well, the Bible's been translated so many times, it's not the truth. And, there's never been any actual proof of the empty tomb. And, on and on and on. The stupid, to me, stupid, foolish things that people say to avoid the work of just looking into Jesus and for themselves deciding if it's true. It's pure foolishness. God is reaching out his hand. He's left this Bible, the best-selling book of all time, for decades and decades now. He's left it there to explain it to you. And it's not hard to follow. If you just go into the first 4 books of the New Testament, you're going to hear all about Jesus, what he did, what he said about himself, including that he's God, the Messiah who comes to save. It's pretty simple. And then, just look on every street corner in every southern town, any town in Europe, there is a church built to Jesus, a uneducated carpenter who spoke for 3 years on the globe. There are billions and billions of followers. Something happened to turn them from, oh, he's dying on a cross, he's nobody, to he is the Messiah who has come to save, and I believe. Research it, just look into it. That's all I'm saying. It's not that hard. I mean, just be a little less complacent and look into it for yourself. And I guarantee you, you're going to find more and more and more reasons to believe. More reasons to believe than not to believe. If you don't believe, it's simply because you're lazy. And, you just want to keep doing things your own way. You don't want to be under the reproof of God, the conviction of God. You just want to go along your life and do your deal and hope that hell isn't real, when the Bible is very, very, very clear that it is. So anyway, not very encouraging, but hopefully spurs you to do some research. And I'll just read the last verse of Proverbs 1, verse 33. But whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease without dread of disaster. That sums it up perfectly. If you listen to him, he's the way to get to heaven. You're going to dwell securely in heaven in eternity. That's your reward. That's what Jesus came to save you from. He came to save you from hell and save you into heaven. And you'll be at ease without dread of disaster, without dread of hell, if you just come to know Jesus. Just do a little research, just get a little knowledge in your head. You're a bright person, you can do this. Take the time. It's the most important decision you're ever going to make. If you don't make it while you're alive on earth, there is no do-overs. Once you die, if you are not a follower of Jesus, you will go to eternal separation, destroyed, disaster, in hell forever. It's just what it is. The message of Jesus is out there. You cannot say you haven't heard it. If you're listening to this, you've heard it. You cannot say that you haven't seen it. It's all over. The entire calendar was changed based on Jesus' life. So he was a pretty darn big deal. And it wasn't just because he said things like, love is good, forgiveness is good. That wasn't enough for the Roman Empire to change from following pagan idols to following Christ. Christianity was in place long before Rome and the Catholic Church, to be exact, 200 years. So there was something going on from the time that Jesus died on that cross to the time of Rome. That's from 33 AC to 300 AC, Christianity grew and grew and grew and grew. Not because he died, but because Jesus rose again. Every one of the disciples ran when he was nailed to that cross. Some of them watched from afar, but they didn't believe. They didn't believe anymore that he was Messiah. They were weeping in agony. What we thought was going to happen didn't happen. Jesus didn't come to save us from Rome, didn't come to save us from our sin, didn't come to save. He's dead up there. They didn't believe. And then, 3 days later, Jesus rose from the grave and showed himself to them, all the apostles, and to, the Bible will say, 500 people at one time. He walked around for 40 days on the earth in his resurrected body, and then he ascended to heaven. So he made it no secret that he was no longer dead, resurrected. And if somebody predicts that they're going to die, they're going to raise from the dead, and then they're going to go to glory because of the defeating of sin that they predicted they were going to do, and then they accomplish it, that person is God. And he said he was God. So you add those things up. He said he's the Messiah come to save. He dies on a cross. He's buried in a grave 3 days. He is then risen from the grave and then walks around for 40 days and ascends to heaven after showing himself to hundreds of people. That person is God. And history proves it, because as I said, every one of those disciples didn't believe when he died on that cross. But every single one of them, after he rose from the grave, of course, except from Judas, every one of them died a martyr's death. Except for John, the Apostle John. They tried to kill him by boiling him in oil, but he didn't die. So they just sent him off to the island of Patmos, where he was in exile, where he died. I think he came back, and then he died. But anyway, how do you explain that? They died a martyr's death. That means every one of the apostles died saying, I will never, ever, ever, ever renounce Jesus. I don't care if it gets me beheaded, stoned to death, hung upside down on the cross. That's what the Apostle Peter died doing. They all were killed, every one of them, for Jesus. When just, a couple decades before, when he died on the cross, they ran thinking he wasn't Messiah. So the resurrection is real. There's just that evidence I just told you, plus the evidence of the entirety of Rome becoming Christian, because there were so many Christ followers, it was starting to shake up the Roman politics, and they just said, we better embrace this, or there's going to become a rebellion. They're following King Jesus instead of Caesar. We better just integrate this. So they took it in to their politics, and it got all kinds of corrupted. Obviously, there's still some great in the Roman Catholic Church. I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just saying in the beginning, when the Roman government took Christianity as its own in 300 AD, there were reasons other than they just believed in Jesus. So do a little research on that. Especially research Constantine. Because he did believe in Jesus. So anyway, that's enough for now. Don't be lazy is the point. It's out there. Research it. Do your homework. Don't be complacent. Learn about Jesus so that you can see the capital T truth and you can be saved. Don't be a fool. Following Jesus is wisdom. Okay. See you later. Bye.